teacher to student ratio working efficiently, those all to me amount to safety. I also believe that our schools should have restorative justice either programs or practices, and you should be peer-to-peer, so that when somebody pisses you off, you know, they're not just ending up in detention or suspended, they're gonna have to understand why what they said was hurtful.
Right.
So more conflict resolution oriented practices.
Yes, here at PSC we are very focused on making sure we can talk things out. We do have a peer mediator program where it's a bunch of students basically getting trained to help mediate. I'm a peer mediator myself.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So too, we're working with a program called C, Students and Educators for Equity, where we have restorative justice teams and stuff. So we definitely, that's a very important part of the school as well. How would you improve or change the set of school safety policies?
How would I change?
Yeah.
So I've been a part of a year after year campaign that is to remove the amount of school safety officers that are across our high school system, and again, have more of what's missing. Many schools do not have a librarian. Many schools do not have social workers or therapists or even a nurse. I think it's absolutely important that our schools operate at their optimal level, and that can only be done when we've got all of the necessities that a student needs to succeed. I think having metal detectors, having school safety officers, you know, nothing against them personally, but I think the system has been set up to create a pipeline that is getting detention, suspended, and the pipeline leading to prison. And I think that that effect is something that school leaders should be aware of, and we shouldn't always think to get students punished. I think like the punishment or disciplining that requires students to take a leave, I don't think that helps. I don't think that makes anyone safe. I think that actually isolates the individual who's made a choice that wasn't okay, and that isolation leads to other negative impacts. And so I think that our schools need to be fully robust, and we don't have, again, music and arts classes are usually the first to get chopped when the budget is not balanced. And I think that that's dangerous. Like, why are we removing music and arts?
Yeah, I agree. I think they're very important to have, especially since it's a way to express yourself in a way. So I 100% agree. Do you think, you mentioned the funding, once the funding goes down, so do these programs. How would it be possible, what are ways to get more funding for our school and these activities?
That's a great question. So the city's budget fight is happening right now as we speak. We're gonna approve or disapprove a budget at the end of June, and for the last 6 months or so, I've been a part of various education campaigns to fully either restore arts and music classes, or guarantee a nurse, or make it so that after-school programming is available, and that has been a priority of mine. Fighting for equitable schools and budgets that really deliver what students need to thrive has been a priority that I am fighting for annually, and it's not been enough. I mean, the first year I got elected, the administration, mayor, had cut tons of money from the Department of Education. So from public schools. Now, when you take money away from public schools, that gives the charters and private schools encouragement. They feel empowered to then expand their footprint. And in the last administration, the narrative around public schools was that we didn't have enough students enrolling, and that was completely false. And they really pushed an effort to privatize. And so we have to fight back against Mayor Adams's big campaign to privatize schools and take money away from public schools. And that is not what I stand for at all. I think that education, especially because students are spending, obviously 5 days, but some of you all are here on the weekends too for theater or whatever else, sports. You are spending all of your life in a building that needs strong working infrastructure. Some of my budget that I'm about to allocate are going towards fixing bathrooms. And I just find it deplorable that the Department of Education or just our city at large doesn't just say, oh, look, we've got 50 broken sinks and bathrooms that don't work, let's fix that first. That leads to health hazards, right? Like, you can end up having an autoimmune condition. We are also seeing with the rainstorms that are happening, that they are so heavy, they're flooding school buildings. And the school buildings certainly are not appropriately able to take in just a few inches of that water. And students have been pushed to, finish their classwork or have to pay attention while they're experiencing this like traumatic and like, I would be anxious if I was in a room where it's flooded and like I'm expected to learn something, or even for the teacher. Many of our lunchroom, the cooks and the lunch ladies, they spend a lot of time in the kitchen that often gets like sweltering hot. And so like the issue around the climate piece is also one that I think is incredibly important, and been a part of a campaign called Clean Healthy Schools that is pushing that piece forward, because we need our schools to be places where we can breathe and not get asthma or an autoimmune condition.
Do you think the way that public schools are set up, do you think that had an effect on why you wanted to become a councilwoman? And just like, why did you come up?
Absolutely. So I went to Brooklyn College. So I hope you all are thinking about CUNY as where you ended up. I certainly was inspired during my undergraduate years. So I was diagnosed with lupus at 17 as I was like heading into senior year of high school. And when I got diagnosed, I experienced a myriad of obstacles. My parents didn't speak English, I didn't have health insurance, and we had never navigated what is a very convoluted, complex healthcare system in our city, on top of our inaccessible trains and buses, and also for just I was very young, like nobody's thinking about illnesses or like chronic illness, and feeling really like, oh, like no one's gonna understand me, or like I don't know if I can get through this. And so I also didn't know if I was gonna go to college. So I was able to get into Brooklyn College with a lot of support from my friends during the application process. And during undergrad, I underwent several invasive faced, and I had to, you know, really work up to graduation. I was not a 4-year student. I did more than 4 years, and just the experience of being a young person with an illness that like doesn't have a ton of research, and also what the research indicates is that Black and brown women are more likely to have it. At the time there was no one medication that could treat lupus, and so I found all sorts of things that really mess with my self-esteem and confidence. However, at Brooklyn College, you know, I became friends with the folks at the Women's Center. I became very active within issues related to just women's rights and like feminist politics. And by the end of the 5 years, I finally declared women's and gender studies as my major. I went in thinking maybe I'm going to try the medical field, and I was just like, it was killing me. Like the books were so heavy. I was not in remission, which is what I am right now. So the campus was grounds for that kind of activism, and I got to see and learn. I got to learn about Palestinians' fight for self-determination. Like that was where I joined the Students for Justice in Palestine. It was also the site where I joined a Muslim Student Association. And at the time, it had been uncovered through an investigation that an informant was hopping around the community schools to prey on vulnerable Muslims and ID them and take them in. And so that was shocking to all of us when we learned that, because I grew up post 9/11, and that experience of being Muslim has always meant that somebody's surveilling us. And so to find out that someone joined the MSA, acted like a Muslim, and befriended us, and ended up being a police informant was just really, it was scary. Like that made all of us feel so unsafe. And we were able to take those concerns to the administration. I also ended up leading several clubs. I was the president of the Desi Cultural Club, and it used to be that the Desi Cultural Club was like just a fun heritage, like celebrating the Wali and Eid and throwing parties. And during my time, I had brought the focus more into issues that are affecting the South Asian community at large, and domestic violence is one of them. And so I had we'd invite guests to speak on these issues, and Saki for South Asian Survivors is one of them. And that conversation, like, I will always remember, because so many of us who were at school were dealing with the violence or the harm that was being described, and so to destigmatize these conversations. So certainly, Brooklyn College laid